Avoidants often want a relationship that feels light, not shallow, just emotionally breathable. They're not looking for chaos, and they're not trying to avoid connection altogether. What they're really trying to avoid is nervous system overload, a state they don't have the tools to regulate once it happens. To an avoidant, safety doesn't feel like closeness. Safety feels like space without consequence. They're drawn to partners who appear independent, people who are fun, emotionally stable, self-contained, and not relying on the relationship to feel okay. And the reason for that is simple, but often misunderstood. Emotional dependence feels dangerous to their nervous system, even when it's healthy dependence, even when it's mutual. Their body doesn't register it as safe. What many people don't realize is that avoidants don't experience emotional closeness as comforting in the beginning. They experience it as pressure. Pressure to respond. Pressure to show up emotionally. Pressure to meet expectations they don't feel equipped to meet. So things that seem normal or even healthy to others can quietly overwhelm them. Frequent texting, daily check-ins, conversations about feelings, needing reassurance, wanting consistency, expecting quick responses. None of these feel neutral to an avoidant nervous system. Even when no demand is intended, their system hears, I'm needed, I might disappoint, I could fail. That's the part people miss. Avoidants don't pull away because you want to get closer. They pull away because getting too close feels like responsibility, and responsibility feels like losing control of the carefully structured life they've built to stay regulated. Many avoidants unconsciously idealize a relationship where space is assumed instead of negotiated, where silence doesn't require explanation, where independence is praised, emotional processing is minimal, and the relationship doesn't require constant tending to. If the relationship feels forced or like pressure, the avoidant will start to pull away. This is where things get confusing for a lot of people, especially when it involves intimacy. Sex can feel easier for avoidance than emotional intimacy. Not because they're cold, not because they're using you, but because sex is physical. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't require emotional exposure in the same way vulnerability does. And avoidant doesn't get attached through sex because they tend to compartmentalize the partner from their heart. They can also be emotionally disconnected and will not fall as fast as an anxious partner. Sex doesn't ask them to explain themselves. It doesn't ask them to reassure you. It doesn't ask them to sit inside emotional discomfort. So yes, they may crave physical closeness while simultaneously avoiding emotional dependence. What overwhelms them isn't affection. It's feeling needed. Feeling like someone's emotional stability depends on them. Feeling responsible for another person's feelings. Feeling like if they don't show up perfectly, they'll cause harm. And that's when their nervous system says, this is too much. That's when they start to distance themselves. Here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. An avoidant can genuinely care about you and still want a relationship that doesn't meet your emotional needs. It has nothing to do with them being malicious or selfish. It's because their capacity is limited and they prioritize regulation over connection. That doesn't mean you should become smaller. It doesn't mean suppressing your needs. And it doesn't mean waiting for them to change. It means seeing the dynamic clearly. And when I say capacity, I don't mean interest or desire. I mean emotional bandwidth. How much emotion their nervous system can hold before it becomes overwhelmed. For many avoidants, that capacity is already limited before the relationship even deepens. Not because of the current partner, but because for years they survived by holding everything in instead of processing it. They learn to suppress emotions, bury stress, move on quickly, stay busy, and not slow down long enough to feel what was underneath. And the body keeps score. When emotions are held, buried, and never released, they don't disappear. They accumulate. Stress builds quietly in the nervous system. So when a partner wants more of their time, more reassurance, more emotional presence, even when it's healthy, it can feel like too much. Not because the partner is asking for something unreasonable, but because the avoidant is already emotionally exhausted, and many times they can think that it's because of their partner. Their system doesn't have room to take on more without tipping into overwhelm. And that's when pressure shows up, not as a thought, but as a bodily reaction that says, I can't handle anymore. Again, the avoidant may not know they have a low capacity threshold. They have been this way all of their lives, so it feels normal to them. And when that happens, their system doesn't say, let me get more close. It says, I need to step back so I can feel balanced again. So their version of love often looks like pulling back to reset, minimizing emotions, avoiding heavy conversations, and needing long stretches of independence. Not because they don't value you, but because staying emotionally present past their capacity feels destabilizing. That's what limited capacity actually means. Avoidants often want connection without obligation, intimacy without dependency, closeness without emotional intensity. And if you need constant reassurance, emotional consistency, and ongoing emotional conversations, then the issue isn't whether they care. The issue is compatibility. Because the right relationship doesn't make you feel like your needs are too much. And healing doesn't come from trying to fit inside someone else's nervous system limits. Clarity starts when you stop asking, why are they like this? And start asking, does this feel safe and fulfilling for me? That's where real security begins. Avoidants are not for everyone. If this dynamic feels exhausting or painful to understand, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means the relationship may not be right for you, and it's okay and healthy to choose yourself and step back. If you've been through this dynamic or have questions, share them in the comments and I'll answer what I can. Thanks for taking the time to listen.